3, 3,
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Halftime Live here on Brew Sports. It is a Tuesday edition of the program. Still no Tanner Burke. I have no idea where he is. I'm sure he's somewhere in Florida. I think he mentioned he was in Venice, which I thought he was in Italy, so I have really no idea where the heck he actually is. Now, he is still in Florida. He'll be back on Thursday. For those of you that are hashtag Team Burke, I completely understand it. If you want all your Bills talk, nobody has time to talk about the Bills, so I'm going to talk about successful franchises for the next 30 minutes. And one of those people that's going to help me to do that is Jimmy Carlton, the host of Double Dribble. He is here with me now. Jimmy, how are you doing today, sir? Welcome to Halftime.
I'm doing great. Yeah, thanks a lot for subbing me in.
Absolutely. It's great to have you. Win that sixth man off the bench and figured you'd be a very competent man to come on in and give us a couple of solid minutes today.
Yeah, I will do no Buffalo Bills talk.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Yeah, I'll be the sixth man, like the Golden State Warriors in Game 1 against the Spurs. I had a little bit of a rough morning, got down early, down by 20, but I've had some coffee.
That's good.
And I'm looking at halftime to sort of make some adjustments, reorganize, and then I'm going to come out ready to dominate for our 5 p.m. Double Dribble show at on Brew Sports.
Well, I mean, as long as you've got the game plan, I mean, I will do my best not to step on your feet. I don't want to make sure that I, injure any ankles or anything as well, too. So I will do my best as well with that. But
I've always known you not to be a dirty player.
I try not to be. Just ask my former teammates. All right, with that being said, we've got a lot of good stuff to get to today. We're going to be joined by two great correspondents here in just a moment. Nkwa Asonye is going to be here to give us a look into the wide world of the NFL. Some great big news happening over the last hour and a half or so that he's going to help us break down. Plus, David Kenyon of Bleacher Report is going to be here as well to help us dive into Jimmy's bread and butter, the NBA Conference Finals. So David will be here to give us all the latest and greatest for that as well, too. A reminder for you, if you are just tuning in, we'd love to hear from you about everything we got going on today. It's always good to hear from you wonderful people. We're also broadcasting live here on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Spreaker.com as well, too. So we are on 3 different platforms all at the same time. Give it to us. We'd love to see and hear from all of you. And, of course, Josh already in the comments starting it says, hashtag free Tanner. Listen, I would love to free Tanner. I don't know where Tanner is. He's off pedaling a gondola or something through Venice, like he said.
Where in the world is Tanner?
I would love to know. I've tried to call. I've tried to text. I've sent smoke signals. He never responds.
The classic 90s game.
It really is. I would be all about that. So, all right, guys, let's get a move on with everything. As we mentioned, Nkwa Asonye, one of our great correspondents, is here this morning to dive into the world of the NFL. It's been a little while since we've heard from Nkwa, but it is always a pleasure and an honor when he joins us back on Brew Sports. Nkwa, a very good Tuesday to you, sir. How are you?
I'm just glad to be standing, Tanner. Good morning to every one of you.
Glad to be standing. What's going on with you? How bad of a day could you possibly be having already, sir?
It's not even a bad day. It's just been a rough stretch. You mentioned at the top of the show that I've been out and about for the past couple of weeks. I've gotten barely any sleep, started a new job. We have a concert on Saturday if you're in the New York area that I'm the musical director for, and I have been losing sleep. So.
My goodness. But all good things though. It's been good stress. You're still in good health. You're just a little bit tired, and I completely understand that.
Here. But it's good to be back for sure.
It
is.
is.
Back to the swing of things.
Absolutely. Well, of course, as if anybody that's been following the NFL recently, they have heard the breaking news this morning that Adam Pac-Man Jones has pled guilty to one account of his single misdemeanor charges that he was charged back in January outside a Cincinnati hotel when he resisted arrest and all of that fun business. He's been in the league for a long time. He spent 7 years in Cincinnati as well. Nkwa, how do you read into the situation? The NFL hasn't come out. They haven't said anything yet that there are going to be any punishments. Jones is going to have to serve 2 days. Jones is going to have to serve 2 days in prison for his role and everything going on that route. But the real question is, though, I mean, how do you view something like this, Nkwa, with the situation moving forward for Jones?
I mean, Jones has been in the league for nearly a decade now. He's had brushes with the law. It's been on teams, off teams, sometimes for behavioral reasons, other times for performance-based. To me, honestly, it's really not that big a deal. I mean, we see players in the NFL get in legal trouble all the time, and somehow it's either skirted under the rug or they find a new place to play. It's very rare that a player with a rap sheet does not find a job. See Greg Hardy. Sad to say.
It is. I mean, to an extent. I mean, in Greg Hardy, though, I mean, he's found a little bit of a job in Dallas, of course, because Jerry Jones will take anybody. But Jimmy, how do you read into this situation with Jones?
I mean, I guess I depart a little bit from Nkwa's take, just in that I don't think that this is the gravest, misconduct that we've seen in the NFL. Certainly, there are worse offenses than what he's been doing, and his previous transgressions have been, marijuana and getting into scraps, or his entourage gets in scraps at nightclubs. But I think part of the problem here is this the talent excuses everything. And granted, the NFL likes to, the NFL is results-based business, and he just was a Pro Bowler in 2015. He's obviously still a very good player. But at the same time, I don't think, for this league that purports to be trying to change its image and to come out strongly in some situations, but not against the guy who's, I've got a page open here now. He's been arrested 8 times. And for me, I always go back to that 2007-2008 incident at a nightclub where, and he was found to be not connected directly to the incident, but he's been sued in civil court several times about it,
right,
where the security guard was shot and paralyzed. And for me, even if you're not legally indicted in that case, that should be sort of a wake-up call in what you're doing in your personal life to make some changes. This guy is still paralyzed with a wife and kids, and if that doesn't enter into your decision making when you're out with your gang or your group and hanging out, I don't know why this guy is still making those decisions.
Right, exactly. I mean, it is unfortunately, as you mentioned, a results-based business, and that's always, I've used the example 100 times on Brew Sports. I said if Aaron Rodgers walked out to a city square and murdered someone tomorrow, 31 NFL teams would still give him a job, unfortunately, because he is such a great player, and NFL teams will push a lot under the rug instead of, when it comes to murders. As soon as you say down with America, as like Colin Kaepernick, totally different situation. Everybody's like, oh, to heck with him, but you killed somebody? Yeah, we can find a job for you. It's kind of a weird double standard, honestly, at some point. But stepping away from the Pac-Man Jones thing, we did talk about that earlier. If you do have any comments about it, like we said here on Facebook or YouTube, we'd love to hear from you guys. We say hi to Jeff, Emily, Patrick, Kurt, and everybody else tuning in as well. Some more happy news, some exciting news. For those that know, one of the greatest to ever play the game, Peyton Manning, was announced today. He will be the host of the 25th Annual ESPY Awards. Now, in the past, we have seen Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, others, Seth Meyers, among others, that have come out and been hosts in the past. And it's been pretty funny, pretty exciting. But this is the first time in a long time they're going with a former NFL player to now do this. But Peyton Manning is kind of a funny guy that we've all seen the commercials. We've had some good laughs with it as well, too. Nkwa, I mean, there's not much to really analyze with this, but how was your reaction when you heard that Peyton Manning was the one that was selected to host this year?
I literally kind of shrugged and said, okay. I mean, they could. It's not a bad pick. Peyton Manning is used to doing things like this. And I sometimes cringe when I see former athletes get a chance to host like this, because some of them really aren't in the public spotlight. And sometimes it takes a little extra coaching, and sometimes it just takes being comfortable. I think Peyton Manning is fully comfortable with who he is as a person, who he was as a player, and is going to poke quite a few jokes at his expense while still saying, hey, I still hold records that you all wish you could even.
Right. I wonder how many times do you think they're going to make him sing as well, too? They're like, I'm hosting the ESPY Awards. I'm waiting for him to, do that a couple of times. That's exactly what's going to end up happening. He's going to find a way somehow to work in it, I feel like. But I've always enjoyed Peyton Manning acting.
I'm telling you, if he opens the show with a tie into Nationwide, you should be suing for your royalty check, right now.
I should. I absolutely should be like, I called it. I absolutely called it. Somebody sign me up right now. I would be super funny if that did
I would
happen.
like to see him reprise the old SNL United Way commercial where he's just chucking footballs at kids' heads. I mean, that was the high water mark for Peyton Manning as an entertainer for me. Everything else is Yeah, he's self-deprecating and he's a brand, and
Right.
he's gonna chug the Budweiser in the Super Bowl
Yep.
post game because he knows what it is for his image and for his endorsements. But that's always gonna be my my highlight.
Yes, I know. Peyton Manning's acting career, I feel like, has been far more successful than a lot of famous actual actors as well, too. But I'm completely fine with that. Jeff on Facebook says that Manning should just stick to commercials and not hosting award shows. That could certainly be interesting. Mitch wants to know if I'm going to try to cut your hair today as well, too. Mitch Baumhoff, your co-host on Double Dribble, was here last Wednesday. We joked that we were going to cut his man bun. We didn't, unfortunately. We even hired a barber, and he didn't.
What?
Wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sitting in the
Mitch
in
wouldn't
the
do
right
it.
chair for it.
It is. I mean, that's the barber chair for it. But Mitch wouldn't go for it because I've been very outspoken about Mitch's man bun on the network. But I try to embrace it when I can.
I feel like it should probably be integrated into our logo at some point.
Find a way to get the man bun on the Double Dribble logo, or just the Brew Sports logo as a whole too. But Jimmy's hair looks fine. I don't think I need to cut his hair, honestly. If anything, maybe I need to get a haircut.
I washed it
too.
today, so.
Oh, well, good. You're 2 steps better than most people. All right. Well, one other thing before we run with you, Nkwa, Bill Belichick has come out recently saying that, and I quote, Tom Brady is not a great natural athlete. Well, that's pretty common sense. Anybody that's ever played Madden, have you ever tried to scramble with Tom Brady? He's got like 3 speed. Like, he's the worst when it comes to trying to actually keep up with what he's doing. But ESPN's First Take posed a very interesting question that I would be curious to get your thoughts on. They have been asking, and I'll ask this to you as well too, Jimmy, would Belichick rather have Tom Brady, or would they rather have the far more athletic, far more mobile Aaron Rodgers? What say you about that, Nkwa?
He would definitely rather have Tom Brady. The familiarity is there, the total affection, the relationship is there. And it's not to throw shade at Aaron Rodgers, but the question begs to be asked, would Aaron Rodgers respond to Bill Belichick the same way Tom Brady did? I mean, we have to understand that Aaron Rodgers came in as a first-round draft pick and was going to be the heir apparent to Brett Favre all along. Tom Brady was not expected to do anything out of Michigan. He was only a starter his senior year. He was a 6th-round pick. And then it took Drew Bledsoe getting injured for him to step in, and things were never the same. And I also think that the system that Mike McCarthy runs with the Packers allows for Aaron Rodgers to be a little bit more, I won't say haphazard. That's not the word I'm looking for. It allows him to be a little more whimsical, as it were. As for Tom Brady, he's very clinical. He'll go through all his progressions. He'll stay in the pocket. He may fight off some pressure, but he's still going to really stick to the script. And I think as far as Bill Belichick runs his team, that's the best fit for him. So it really wouldn't matter if he didn't have all the athleticism. Tom Brady is the quintessential Belichick quarterback.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. I mean, this is obviously a very simple debate, I'd like to think, for most people. I mean, yes, would you like a 5-time Super Bowl winner to be a little bit more mobile? Sure. But if that's really the worst of your problems and you still have won 5 Super Bowls, you're obviously doing something right, I feel like, if you are Tom Brady. And I mean, Bill Belichick, I think, is just going to have to get over it if that's really his biggest complaint about Tom Brady.
Yeah, and I echo all of your comments about, that they're both intelligent guys. They're both obviously great quarterbacks. Rodgers is more athletic and mobile, but I think it goes back. I mean, I don't think I buy into the comments and the narrative of Aaron Rodgers not being a leader and being overly arrogant, that people are alienated by him. But I think there's something to be said for Brady's steadiness. You've never heard any comments by ex-teammates who are leaving that they've been unhappy with his style or his personality. It seems to jive. He seems to sort of step in line under Belichick, who is obviously the leader and the general in that franchise. And I just don't think Rodgers would fall into line or jive the same way.
Exactly. And if you're looking for a quarterback that's just more mobile, I mean, you don't have to pick Aaron Rodgers. You could pick, a Colin Kaepernick, a Russell Wilson. Yeah. I mean, literally anybody that has decent speed, obviously Aaron Rodgers is a proven elite quarterback. That's completely fine. But if you're purely going off of, we just need someone that's a little bit more athletic, you could probably get a 7th-round draft pick that ran a 4.5 40 at the combine who can't throw the ball, to the broadside of a barn to be more athletic. I'm fairly athletic. I probably run a faster 40 than Tom Brady, but I'm not getting a phone call from Belichick to go and play quarterback. So it's just a silly comment that I'm sure some reporter teed him up for, just being like, talk about Tom Brady's athleticism. The guy's 40 years old. How fast can you really be at 40 years old?
I also just love that Bill Belichick won't answer any reporter questions, and then he's asked something where he's he's not throwing Tom Brady under the bus, but it's definitely not the most positive thing he could say about his quarterback. And he has no problem just answering that one because Bill Belichick has no personal connection, or nobody is endearing to Bill Belichick. It's all business.
It is absolutely hilarious. But all right, Nkwa, we got to let you run, unfortunately, but we appreciate you swinging by. Where can people find you on social media so that way they can keep up with what you got going on?
On Twitter, that's where I usually am, at @N_ASONYE.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Nkwa. We'll talk to you soon, sir.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
You as well. Nkwa Asonye, one of our great correspondents here on the Brew Sports Network, giving us his 2 cents this morning. We're going to be joined by David Kenyon from Bleacher Report in just a little while. But before we do that, of course, a reminder, you can get everything that we've got going on Brew Sports on our website, brewsportsnet.com. It's also available here on Facebook, YouTube, and Spreaker.com as well. Numerous ways for you to listen, watch, and learn about the sports world and all the great things that we've got going on. People in the comments section, Patrick wants to know why we're talking about the evil 4-letter words on ESPN. I don't know if you heard this or not, and I don't know if you and Mitch are going to touch on this or not. Did you hear that the rumors that LeVar Ball might get his own show on ESPN?
Why wouldn't he? Like, I mean, he is the quintessential ESPN embrace debate personality. I mean, like watching him on First Take with Stephen A. Smith, it was like looking in a mirror. I mean, like
really was.
Like, it was just like incredible. I mean, he is made for what ESPN is clearly going toward. I mean, after their massive layoffs of a lot of really decorated longtime reporters, they are clearly keeping the guys who are #embrace debating.
Yes, and that's absolutely true about that as well. Patrick says I can hear Tanner screaming now. Yeah, I probably could as well. I mean, I made this point this morning on the Morning Brew. I think from a programming perspective, if we had the ways and the means to do it at Brew Sports, I would hand LeVar Ball a show any day and be like, yes, because I know people would flock by the thousands, if not millions, just to hear what stupidity would come from his mouth. But it would help. It helps ESPN. Like people are saying, it's a dying brand. Well, what better way than to bring in one of the most controversial figures of the last year and have him just start spewing off random things? People are going to hate it, but they are going to not be able to shut it off at the same time.
I mean, we're talking about it right now. We've talked about it in probably 2/3 of our double dribble shows, and his kid's not even in the NBA yet. Although we will find out tonight. That is true. Where he could possibly be headed.
Do you have any inklings? Any at all? If
no,
you had to make a prediction.
I don't have any inklings. They're ping pong balls bouncing around, and I mean, it's the ultimate randomness as long as you don't buy into too many NBA conspiracies. But I am really, really rooting for him for the Lakers not to be able to get him. So if the Lakers pick falls outside the top 3, and we'll get into that a little bit more on our basketball show. But just because that's clearly where he wants to go, he said it. The balls have explicitly said that he wants to go to the Lakers, and if he doesn't, it's going to cause.
I want him to go to
endless
Brooklyn.
entertainment.
I really want him to go to Brooklyn so he can just die. Just be like, just go away. Be like, what's that? You want to be the focal point? Sure, go to Brooklyn where they have nobody. That would be fun. Yeah, I would pay to see that. All right. As we mentioned about the NBA, the Eastern and Western Conference Finals are rolling. Golden State, as we talked about in the beginning, won Game 1 in dramatic fashion. One of the gentlemen that's been covering it, not only for Bleacher Report, but just for Brew Sports as a whole, is David Kenyon, and he joins us now. A very good day here on a Tuesday to you, David. How are you, sir? You're doing so well, David, I can't even hear you for some reason. I don't know why, but hopefully he can. I'm not sure what's going on with that one, but we'll see. We'll come back to David in just a quick second. But
he's speechless about the NBA
speechless.
Playoffs.
He's like, listen, guys, it's been so great.
Unlike most of the players in their post-game press conferences who have had plenty to say.
That is true. That is very true. But I think we've got David back now. David, are you there, sir?
How about now?
There we go. We got him. All right. Life is good now. We've got David ready and rolling. All right, David, talk to me about Game 1, Golden State, San Antonio. A comeback. Golden State was down by as much as 25 at one point, and now they've somehow managed to sneak out a victory after Kawhi Leonard went down. I got a chance to watch most of the game. I don't ever get a chance to watch most NBA games, but I got to see most of it. I still can't believe what I saw. David, what did you take away from this one?
That if you doubted Kawhi Leonard's impact for the Spurs after they wrecked the Rockets in Game 6 of the previous series, that pretty much described it perfectly how much he means to that team.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand. But that's the thing, though, too, is that Kawhi Leonard, I feel like, and you're the basketball guy, not me, Jimmy, I feel like his impact has been so all over the place, even in the playoffs as well, too. Am I totally wrong on that?
I think Kawhi Leonard's impact doesn't really fluctuate that much, but the difference or over the last couple of games when the Spurs played the Rockets rolled over and died. James Harden was indifferent to playing that basketball game. And then, a couple of days later, you're playing against one of the best, constructions of talent, one of the best NBA teams we've ever seen.
Right.
Most people's odds-on favorite to win the championship. And so you really can't give the Warriors any opportunities, any openings, and your best player going down was clearly, it was part of a sort of a full second half comeback that ended up being the turning point.
Right. I mean, in this game too, I mean, the way you break it down, I mean, Golden State proves that, sometimes sweeping teams back to back is not always a good thing to then go and start off at game one. We've seen it before. I mean, they were slow against Utah after they swept the game in the first round. It happens in game one. When you don't play consistent basketball, it slows you down a little bit. And some people are like, well, you get more rest, you get going. Well, that first half, though, I mean, if Golden State hadn't done what they did in the second half, if they finally hadn't woken up and Kawhi hadn't gone down, we could be talking about how San Antonio beat Golden State by 30 or maybe even 40 at that point, too.
Right. I mean, talent overcomes a lot, right?
It does. Usually it ends up doing it. But all right, talk to us about this Kawhi Leonard injury, though, David, from your perspective. You do have a covering when it comes to the San Antonio Spurs as well, too. How much of an impact is it going to have for San Antonio in Game 2? It's sounding like Leonard will be officially out. I've even heard rumors he might even be out for Game 3 as well, too. What is this going to mean now for the Spurs moving forward?
Well, it'll mean a lot more Jonathan Simmons and Kyle Anderson, a couple guys who kind of battled for the rotational spot the entire season. Simmons has played really, really well over the last 2 weeks, but I mean, you can't replace Kawhi Leonard. The way he's developed his offensive game and become a versatile scorer, but not only that, he's an attacker now. He can take you off the dribble, and he's been a primary playmaker for the Spurs this year if it hasn't been Tony Parker. But that is the big problem. Now Parker's out too, so you're going to have to turn to Jonathan Simmons and Manu Ginobili to initiate offense, or LaMarcus Aldridge as a post-up option. And then on the defensive side, Danny Green, I mean, it sure is nice to have Danny Green waiting as the next top defender, and he usually takes the toughest assignment anyway. But with the Warriors, there's 3 of them in the backcourt. You have to chase Curry around, you have to chase Durant around and deal with him being 7 feet tall, and you have to really chase Klay Thompson around because he works so well off screens.
David, after the game or yesterday, Greg Popovich made a lot of comments that were pretty upset. He was pretty upset about Zaza Pachulia, getting under Kawhi Leonard on that closeout, basically blaming him whether there was intent or not for Kawhi's injury. Even going so far as to compare it to manslaughter. It's pretty incendiary stuff, especially from a guy who, again, like Belichick, doesn't like to talk to the media, but really seemed to appreciate the opportunity and the opening to make some comments. I'll tell you, what it sounded like to me was a guy who knows he has a lot of clout and has a lot of sway in the league because he's so revered and so respected, using that as an opportunity, sort of the way David Fizdale did in the first round, to draw attention to something that he is hoping to take advantage of and benefit from. What did you make of Pop's comments about Zaza being a dirty player? What do you make of sort of intent versus just the result of a play? And how do you think it impacts the rest of the series?
That's a really good question. There's something that coaches need to do, especially when they're going to be at a disadvantage, and that's try to work the refs a little bit before. So maybe you catch them in that mindset like, hey, okay, yeah, watch extra carefully for that. Because the Spurs are going to need a few more calls. They simply cannot, or, we think, but it's the Spurs, so who knows. They can't compete without Kawhi Leonard. I mean, they'll lose by a hard-fought 15, But as far as the comments with Pachulia, I very much understand it, especially from the Spurs perspective, because he has been a dirty player, at least against the Spurs. And I think we can kind of accept that Pachulia is a dirty player. Looking back, he almost broke Kawhi Leonard's arm when he was tumbling to the floor, and he hooked Leonard and just kept turning. He elbowed both Patty Mills and David West in the face. So there is that history, and you have to take that into account. But as far as the intent question, I think the biggest thing is people want to get stuck on the big headline, and that's the biggest one. And whether or not you think it was intentional, it was irresponsible. And I think we need to start and really finish there. He should know better. Whether he was intentionally doing it or not, he did it, and it's irresponsible because we know the result of that.
So going back to something Baxter said a little earlier about Golden State's time off, right? They had swept their previous series. They were a robot alien sent here to win all the be in the finals every year. But going over to that side of the playoffs, what do you make of the series with the Cavaliers and the Celtics that's starting up tomorrow?
How much defense are the Celtics going to play? And as you mentioned with the rust, how many shots are the Cavs going to miss? You look at the Warriors' first half. They had quite a few open shots that they just plain missed. And then in the second half, they just plain made. So it can be that kind of thing where the Cavs might come out rusty, but then are the Celtics causing it, or are the Cavs just missing? Because you can play good defense and have Kyrie Irving score 45 points on you because he's also a freak. You can play good defense and LeBron goes for 30 and 10 because he's LeBron James. Or you can hold him to 20% shooting and that was not a product of your own defense. So that is the biggest question for game one. And unlike the Spurs, would the Celtics be able to steal that one?
I've heard rumors today that if Boston and Cleveland are tied 1-1 with the series going back to Boston, that there's an opportunity that Boston could actually win the series. I find that still a little ridiculous. I think if Boston's lucky, they'll win 2 games. But is there, forgive my inexperience when it comes to the basketball scene at all, is there any possible scenario that either of you see that Boston wins this series, aside from LeBron James just giving up basketball and never coming back?
No, I don't think so. I mean, even though there have been some counter arguments to the best player on the court of either team is that they're going to win the game, they're going to win the series. That's
right.
Sort of the prevailing sentiment in the NBA and the wisdom. It's been interesting of the four sort of front running MVP candidates all year long. We made much ado about the MVP race. Russell
Right.
Westbrook goes out in the first round. James Harden goes out in the second round, doesn't really show up. Kawhi Leonard now might be out. And who's still left there? The guy who's probably going to end up in fourth place in the MVP voting, but really should just win it every single year that he plays, LeBron. And he's having possibly his best playoffs since in 5-6 years. Statistically, he's carrying the Cavs. I just don't see a way that the Celtics are going to be able to slow him down. They have even fewer guys than the Raptors did in terms of sort of big, bruising, physical guys that can actually get in his way and defend him. What do you think, David?
I think what you said there is a really, really good summary, especially with how he's had such a good playoffs. My question, because I'm such a numbers guy, and you see the way LeBron is playing, and the eye test says he's been awesome, and obviously he has. But he has shot so much better in the playoffs than he did all season that mathematical regression to the mean, you would think, has to pop up at some point. And I know there's a big divide on how people interpret that. Like, well, do you see how he's playing? I do. And I just wonder, can he continue it? Because the numbers say or suggest he won't. Now, with Boston having home court, you've seen in the Washington series, especially how much better they play at home. But they're still going to have to take one at Cleveland in Game 3 or Game 4. So I don't see it happening. And Baxter, like you said, it probably doesn't go more than 6. But, man, I just don't think the Celtics have enough. But they are close.
Just out of curiosity for both of you as well, too, as we're talking with David Kenyon from Bleacher Report, before we let you run, if you had to name somebody that's not one of the big players currently on any of these 4 teams remaining that you think is going to show up, I mean, we saw Kelly Olynyk last night bring the roof down in Boston. No one ever thought that was going to happen. But I mean, specifically looking at the Golden States or looking at the Clevelands more so than any other team, is there a person that is not being talked about as much? I mean, I feel like even Klay Thompson could fall into that category because he just hasn't gotten a lot of press recently. But is there somebody you think is going to step up that we're not talking about, or people will be so surprised about, even though people have actually been talking about it?
Right. I mean, we've got 4 teams left, right? So there's been a lot of focus on basically anyone who's a rotation player who's going to have a potential to make an impact. But on the Warriors Spurs side, the guy I would look at, and he's certainly not a forgotten player. He makes himself known. Would be Draymond Green. Not one of the probably two or three best players on that team, but he's shooting 55% on threes in the playoffs. He's an okay 3-point shooter, but that's like David said, that's another example of something of a case where you would expect to regress back to the mean. He's going to go back, and I think the Spurs are going to have to continue to be like, if somebody's going to beat us, we're going to let him shoot and be the guy that beats us. On the Cleveland-Boston side, I talked about them not really having a stopper for LeBron compared to what the Raptors had with a few bigger guys. Jay Crowder, who is
he's a big guy.
Yeah, I mean that is a lot of man right there. And if there's one guy that can at least slow him down, it's probably going to be Marquette's own Jay Crowder.
What do you think about that one on that side, David?
Well, I mean, I'll just fill out the teams he didn't hit. Patty Mills for the Spurs. I think he was 1 for 6 or 1 for 7 from 3-point range in the first game, and he's a 40% 3-point shooter. If one of those goes down, suddenly the Spurs probably have a lead late. And maybe that changes game 1 too. So that's a big thing for the Spurs. And then on the other side, Cleveland, they have Tristan Thompson in the front court, who's been an awesome rebounder. He's not much of a scorer, but he's a really good rebounder. And again, in the regular season, he averaged 4.5 or so offensive rebounds against the Celtics. And the Celtics are really, really mediocre to below average on the glass. And so Tristan Thompson keeping possessions alive, giving the Cavs more second chance opportunities, that could really kill the Celtics.
Last thing here before we let you run, David. Jeff asks a phenomenal question on Facebook that I would love to know the answer to. I don't know if there is an answer to this, but he asks, what would it take to beat LeBron James? What does it take realistically?
I'm going to throw that to David because I don't have an answer for you.
Going to deflect to David. David, do you have an answer?
You say to beat or to be?
To beat, B-E-A-T,
okay.
Beat. How would you beat LeBron James?
Well, there aren't many good blueprints, but
challenge him to a different sport.
Yes, ping pong.
Except not football, because he'll wreck you at that too.
True.
Man, the Spurs are kind of an outlier from that championship they won because they did everything so perfectly. But man, with this Cavs team, if you can stop LeBron's passing, which is super difficult because you have John Wall, you have Chris Paul, and then you probably have LeBron as the best passers in the NBA, and that's such an underrated part of his game. If you can stop him from facilitating, then you're going to have a chance. But I mean, he's 6'9", 250. How do you stop that guy?
I mean, that's a valid point. I mean, even from the passing perspective, too, that's something that I just don't think about a lot. When you think of LeBron James, you think of obviously his shooting, and he plays fairly good defense. But, I mean, you don't think about the passing. You think of the Chris Pauls and the other guys that are, shorter to the ground, that are, dishing it out. That's their job more than making the buckets. But I guess the passing, I think, would be a good thing to shut down as well, too. But as you mentioned, how do you shut down a starting linebacker for any NFL team? Like, it seems terrifying.
Well, and that's the dilemma with these super teams with the Warriors and the Cavaliers, which is why everybody's there, is predicting that since the season started, they were going to meet in the finals for the third straight year because they have too many options. You take away the best player on either side. Last year, Kyrie Irving was arguably down the stretch a bigger reason that they were able to prevail in the finals against the Warriors. A couple of years before that, you had Steph, but Clay stepped up and Draymond Green. So it's like, pick your poison with these teams, and there's really not a good antidote.
Fair enough. Well, we'll have to see if any of the teams that end up having to take on Cleveland the remainder of the way, whether it be Boston or anybody on the western side of things, can shut down the passing. And if we can, we'll have to find David Kenyon and be like, you were right. You were well right. But David, we appreciate you swinging by today. Where can people find you on social media and find your work as well?
You can find me on Twitter at Kenyon19_BR, and then all my work is on Bleacher Report.
Phenomenal. Thanks so much, David. We'll talk to you soon, sir.
All right. Thank you.
David Kenyon, there he goes from a Bleacher Report here on halftime. Great to hear from him, to get his insights and updates into the wide world as well too. Anything David said that we didn't touch on that's still resonating with you at all, Jimmy?
I'm curious to see, besides the game that we have tonight with the Spurs and the Warriors. I'm very eager to watch the draft lottery. I would have liked to pick his brain on that, and being a fan of the draft as he is. But we'll certainly get into that on our show later on.
Yeah.
It's just, it really does feel like I can't really blame James Harden and the Rockets for rolling over. It really does seem like we have the finals all set, and it's just a matter of waiting until we get there.
It is. That's very true. Well, I'm gonna cut it here so that way you guys have plenty of stuff to cover tonight on Double Dribble. For those that do not know, we do have an NBA show here on Brew Sports. It is hosted by Jimmy Carlton and Mitch Fomhoff. Hopefully no man bun, but I'm sure he will. They will be here tonight at 5 p.m. Central Time, 6 Eastern, right here on Facebook Live, on YouTube Live, and on Spreaker, right here on Brew Sports. So make sure you tune in for that. It's going to be a lot of fun. They've got, of course, so much more to dive into as well. I'm sure they'll talk about Lonzo Ball at some point and LeVar. So wouldn't be a show on Brew Sports if it wasn't, right? I'm sure Tim Tebow will find a way to get into the conversation as well too. But Jimmy, I appreciate you taking the time today to swing by and fill in for Tanner Burke. You did a phenomenal job. You didn't get pied in the face. You didn't get hair ripped off your arms. I feel like it's a win for you today.
As far as the halftime shows go, I feel like I got out real easy.
did.
I appreciate the warm up for my show.
Tuesdays in general are pretty mild, so you don't have to worry about any of that.
Good.
We did spike your tires while you were here in the studio.
Terrific.
Though, so you have
I'll look
to
forward to
worry about that. But no, hopefully not. But thanks to Nkwa, Asonye, and David Kenyon as well, too, for swinging by the program today. Thanks for all of you that tuned in, that commented, that shared your opinions about everything that we've got going on. Remember, brewsportsnet.com is the website to check out everything that's going on. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at brewsportsnet. I am at Baxter Colburn. What are you on Twitter, Jimmy?
At Jimmy Carlton 88.
There you go. Nice and easy. All right, for Jimmy Carlton, I'm Baxter Colburn. Thanks so much for watching. This has been Halftime on Brew Sports. We'll see you tomorrow.
3,